Hello and welcome to I Was Just Wondering with me, Tom Salmon, the show that dives into film, music and games and everything else in between. My guest on this week's show is the award-winning filmmaker, creator, sculptor, Dominic Hailstone. Dominic's amazing body of work includes working with the band Tool, film projects like Alien Covenant, Men and The Evil Dead Rise. Hello Dominic, welcome to the show. So for people who aren't familiar with you and your work and your artwork, who are you and what do you do?
Hi, my name's Dominic Hailstone, and I'm a horror filmmaker. I'm a director and a writer, mainly I'd say a sculptor and an illustrator.
So I want to start off with a real granular question here. What makes modern-ish British horror films so unique? And I have a few reference points here to start us off. So folklore, macabre artwork and Hammer horror films.
I don't know too much about really modern horror films because I'm not really sure what they are. And I don't watch a lot of horror films, which might sound odd to you. However, Hammer films, I love Hammer films, which when everything started. And, I mean, that happened in the 50s, and that was just a big explosion of sex and violence, which I think was just lacking from the screens at the time. And then that was repeated in the 70s when all those got shown on TV. And after the 60s, obviously, everything went to shit. So lots of people, me included, were sat there with the blackouts happening as kids, desperate for any sort of entertainment at all. And when there were coal strikes and we had these blackouts, so quite often the most popular TV show around that time was Doctor Who, and Doctor Who lent with Tom Baker really heavily into horror. But what would happen a lot of the time was you'd be watching your favourite series and then there would be a blackout and you never got to see the final episode.
Right. Okay.
So the hunger for horror for kids was just like, well, if I'm not going to see the episode of Genesis of the Daleks or whatever I wanted to watch, I am going to then stay up Friday night till really late at night to watch the horror double bill on Saturday and Sundays,
Yeah.
And then on top of that, if you layer the state of the country and this kind of revival of these Hammer and Amicus films that were being shown, if you then layer on top of that the fact that nothing really quite worked, and that includes the titles for almost every TV show in the 70s that was shown on British television, which was usually done using stop motion animation and had this weird discordant quality because it used to have electronic music attached to it. Again, that was an art form that wasn't quite there yet. So everything kind of had this broken, fractured quality, almost like a sort of echo from the future.
Yeah.
It's like in Prince of Darkness, they would receive an echo or a dream from the future. And that was like that. You could sort of almost feel that electronic music could be good and that computer graphics could be good. But right now they're just terrifying and wrong and broken. Which, of course, is actually what computers are like.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
They aren't these shiny things that fix your lives. They are actually these kind of clunking, breaking things that help you but don't.
Yeah, actually complicate things.
They actually complicate things.
It's interesting because you're definitely, that seems like a cusp of very sort of nascent technology where people could see its potential, but we're experiencing it a very... especially the Doctor Who, the music, I think that was the first time whatever electronic instrument was sort of used back then to make that particular sound, I believe. Yeah.
Well, my mum was a teacher, so she was a kindergarten teacher, and I've actually got an old single LP I think it's from 57, and unfortunately it's got a really big groove in it, so it's really heavily damaged, but it's early electronic music.
Yeah.
And on the back it says something like, these beeps and bloops are incomprehensible to adults, but children find them oddly stimulating.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, adults at least are going, oh god, I don't know what this is, but the kids are into it, you know what I mean? And we can hear these sounds. It was like, when I was growing up and listening to, computer games would load on tape and you would hear the sound of them loading. Do you know what I mean? It's and it just sounded like a sort of weird robot screaming or something.
Yeah.
But we were already into that as well.
There's a sound of information, yeah.
You know?
I guess the brain's malleable. I always think the brain's very sticky to certain things at certain points. Of what we take from seeing, especially like horror films, in a sense of like the visceral reaction to them. Of like people can be very squeamish about this and not want to see that, and other people can find a sense of, I don't know, catharsism. And I guess like just jumping back to Hammer horror films, was there a particular favourite that you had back in the day?
No. Hammer films, no. I mean, but that only comes from the fact that I can't tell any Hammer films apart.
Well, I don't think they could either, to be fair. They were shot back to back in a space of a week, weren't they?
No, I mean, I'm being, I love Hammer films, but no, what I mean is I've seen them all so many times.
Right.
I cannot separate. I'm like, I mean, the first Dracula is excellent. As is anything with Peter Cushing in is great, because I love watching Peter Cushing act, and usually anything with Christopher Lee in is pretty good, although they're aware that his range is more limited. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean. So, but he's the best Dracula. I'm not gonna knock him that.
And I know you're a particular fan of Peter Cushing, because I believe that you and your friend have the makeup kit. You sort of split it in half. We did, yeah. Me and Dave Elsey went to buy. He's got the majority of it, but we bought Peter Cushing's makeup kit from in auction. However many years ago, 30 years ago now. And he has the teeth from the real crown in that jewel is the teeth from Grimsdyke and the Tales from the Crypt, which Peter Cushing wore. But I've got a couple of his wigs. I've got some gloves that he wore for Sherlock Holmes, and a pipe, his Sherlock Holmes pipe, and some cards that he had made up that say Sherlock Holmes. I love it. I wish I had more of his stuff. I mean, it's weird because it's like it's an object, and these objects that you can sort of like buy, but they're imbued with a certain significance because this person had them, touched them, and they're part of like film history. Yeah, and it's all in your head, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because like I'm just gonna like die of a heart attack one day, and someone's gonna go, "What's all this shit?" Throw it in the bin. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And but then again, you hear about all these things kind of being rediscovered years and years later in some old dusty attic anyway, and So with that in mind, when I first saw your film and artwork, it took my breath away in a good and bad way, which I think is like the appropriate reaction. And I know you mentioned in a previous interview that your mother worked for the Spastic Society. I hope I can say that word. I don't know if that's politically correct. Well, it was what it was called. Yeah, it was just what it was called, So I bring that up because we're used to seeing the human body in a very sanitized way, and with sort of film in mind. What do you find most fascinating about seeing the human body manipulated on screen? Because that's a very particular way of seeing the body displayed. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. To be honest, I don't think it's got much to do with the Spastic Society. I mean, my grandmother was also severely disabled as well. I've never, although, if you want to psychoanalyze it, you could go like, oh yeah, that's definitely connected back. But my memory of my grandmother was that she was paralyzed and just sorry to see she can't move, and my memory of my mother working for Spastic Society was that our house was full of those dogs and little kids. I'm not sure if you're old enough to remember those. They used to have little boxes you used to put money in. Oh, okay. And you'd have like a kid with polio, and it was a sculpture of a kid with polio. Right. Or a dog which had like a wounded paw or something. And so our house was just full of these weird, like disabled kids, these little statues or like a dog or a puppy. And so there were probably about the maximum 10 or 15 of those in our house. And people would come round and go, oh my God, what? I mean, and that's kind of spooky if you've got these sort of statues of sort of little kids in your house. But I don't think that's got much to do with what your question is. That probably comes from just seeing American Wealth in London and Videodrome, and there was a lot of that going around at the beginning of the early 80s, late 70s. Yeah, sort of like, I think it's like splatterpunk. I think that's a sort of, because I know there's different like genres of that within that. Like, so Cronenberg with his body horror, and I think like splatterpunk maybe was that more Evil Dead, and then like I guess like Dawn of the Dead, Evil Dead, Reanimator, sort of, and then like the Driller Killer, I guess that's the original original video nasty, I guess.
I was once hugged by Abel Ferreira.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he spontaneously hugged me. I think he thought he recognised me.
Oh, okay.
But I like that. I like Abel Ferreira a lot.
Yeah.
He's an excellent director. I don't think Driller Killer is very good.
I think I've seen it once.
It's grimy.
Yeah.
Awful.
It's very grungy. And I guess that goes back to almost like grindhouse cinema, I guess, because that sort of folds into an exploitation cinema, or sort of coalesce in that sort of in that sort of, I don't know, oeuvre.
But it's interesting. That sort of thing is actually what I was never interested in that. So how Last House on the Left, for instance.
Yeah, the Wes Craven movie.
Yeah, and like the cannibal films. Well, the cannibal films have some interest, I think, now. But back when I was a kid, no one really liked those films. They didn't like films that were just sort of nasty and boring.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, and they were, yeah.
There's lots of them around right now, this sort of shock, exploitation sort of porn. What are they called? I can't remember.
Oh, like torture porn. So
torture porn.
Yeah. Eli Roth, I guess you'd say that Hostel was like...
I didn't think that was... I'm like the only person who doesn't. Me and Kim Newman, I thought that was quite funny, that film. Everyone else was like, this is like the... What's it called? The Serbian movie?
Yeah, I was going to...
That's just horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible.
That's just like, I'm not watching this. I just don't... I'll turn it off. Whereas I think in Hostel 2, they end up kicking... some kids end up kicking a guy's head around with a football. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was pretty funny. You know what I mean? It's not... There's a sense of... There's a sense of humour there,
And that's something I want to talk about your work, because I was interested when you're listening to another interview, you said you're not particularly interested in gore.
No.
So
you don't want to see... Like, to me, it's about suffering. Like, gore is fine. It's fine. But, like, if you're going to show someone suffering for, like, 3 minutes, it's like... but just sort of going back to your work, and in terms of like the ISIS video, which is often brought up as well, that you directed, with the guy falling off the skyscraper, I'm assuming it was a building, and there is that moment where you see his face hit the sort of like pavement, and that was a very strong choice, because there's two ways you can kind of go: either bursts like a melon, or you see his sort of like face contour as it's sort of like hitting the pavement, which was an interesting sort of choice to kind of make, or like maybe sort of like speaks to your particular sort of tastes, perhaps. Yeah, to me it's all about, like, there's sort of logical challenges that you set yourself. So with that, I mean, one of the challenges that I don't think in my short films there's any blood. I mean, I put blood in the work that I do for other people. You know what I mean? But there's no blood. So I'm like, essentially I want to do like a U for the eel or the ISIS thing. I want to do a U-rated film as intense as possible, because when I was a kid, like Jaws was a PG, and Star Wars was a U, and U meant universal. You could see it when you were 3. And you have to remember that Star Wars has got someone's arm being cut off in it. It's got monsters in it. It's quite scary. And so the idea of making things that are acceptable for kids, or within the boundaries for kids, but are actually really push the limits of them, that interests me. But as far as the gore and the ISIS thing goes, I mean, I did actually film. I knew I never wanted blood, because I think blood is immediately like, the reaction you get from it is so strong. It's like almost like a cheat. It's like a dick joke for a comedian. It's easy. So when I was doing it, there was a version of it which had the teeth coming out. So as his jaw hits the ground, the teeth all pop out and they fly out. And there is a version of it that exists that was never finished that has that. But I was like, the teeth are too distracting and it's too much. You're too drawn into like the emotion of like, ow. Whereas I don't want that. I wanted it to feel more like a dream. And there's a friend of mine said it. He goes, you just want to see what the head would do. And that is kind of it, if you know what I mean. I wanted to see what it would do. When I got the model and just smushed it against the ground. It's not really anything, it's not clever,
But I think it's interesting the point you make. There's an element of restraint, really great horror, really fantastic horror, the moments of horror, there's an element of restraint to them and focus. And I guess some of the like really nasty sort of stuff, there's no restraint, or it becomes completely absurd and it just takes you out of it. So it's so over the top. I mean, that's also sort of like fun, but there are these sort of like moments of like great.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, you know, it's like if you saw someone doing like a thing, if you saw like Jim Carrey in the pub and you were going like, he was doing something, and you'd be like, oh, that's really funny. But then a step away from that is like someone having an epileptic fit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't want to see anyone like harming themselves or like really depraving themselves or really, you know, I don't want to see anyone desperate on screen or like, I don't want to see any animals getting killed. I mean, even a fly. I mean, I'm being serious. Like, I don't like it. It's really the, you know, the kind of, are you entertaining people or not? Are you here to entertain people or not? And I think, you know, the problem is that some people find my stuff entertaining or that sort of work entertaining, and some people really don't, or they object to it, you know. But it's a visceral reaction, and like I'm very happy. You know, I'm essentially a provocateur, so I'm very happy at any reaction. It's good.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
I know.
It's just I want the same. I want to be going like, oh, you're that sort of person, and you're that sort of person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there is a very clear line.
It's a very clear line. It's like I don't really want people there who are just going to. The worst review I ever got was someone going, oh, this was quite good, but also quite bad. You know, and that was on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, you bastard. You know?
Yeah, sort of fence sitting. Yeah.
You really know how to get to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just, and also I want to say about your work as well. When I, as I say, I was scrolling for my like Instagram and showing my friends and stuff, that there is like, when you get past the actual sort of visceral response of these like unusual forms we're not used to sort of seeing, there is a beauty and an art to it that you, I guess, like you have to work for, kind of, that past the visceral nature that's kind of there. It's like under the surface of it. And I think when I listened to the podcast you did with like Chet Zar and the other gentleman's name who I forget, and like the dark art scene, when I scroll through that, yes, there's a very sort of visceral reaction to the artwork, but once you kind of get past that viscerality of it, there's a real technique, there's a real sort of like beauty, there's a real sort of form and structure to it. It isn't just like grotesqueness. There is, you know, there's a logic and there's a sort of style there that
yeah, you have to follow the rules, you know. Because it's like, it's kind of like, what are the rules of filmmaking? And I'm very, very, I'm not big on formlessness at all. I'm very, very follow the rules. The rules have been handed down through centuries and through nature. You know what I mean? When I was told about, when I was younger, when I was drawing, when I was younger, you know, the teacher was like, oh, you know, the golden ratio. I knew the golden ratio. I wasn't taught the golden ratio. I knew it. And they were like, yeah, where were you taught this? And I was like, well, I wasn't taught it. But it's in nature.
Yeah.
You see it in nature. So if you're in tune with that, you recognize those shapes and those patterns just instantly. And most people should be in tune with it, but we're not, because we live in cities, which contaminate our perception of what those forms are. And we suddenly start to think that, you know, Euclidean geometry and, you know, squares and things are all like proper. And they'll make us feel safe, you know. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like,
I do.
Like when you're a kid, you're like a baby bird would imprint on its mother, and we imprint on our TVs. You know?
Yeah. No, surrounds. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
You know, and if you're born in the country, you imprint on those patterns there.
Yeah.
If you're born in a city, you'll imprint on those patterns.
Yeah, and just one thing I sort of like jump into the sort of next thing I want to ask you about, and it's a sort of nice follow on from that, is like, when did you kind of realize that your perspective was different from perhaps your peers or people around you, that you were kind of seeing things in a different way?
I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, you don't, it's like saying, well, when did you realize you were different? It's like, well, I was never anybody else, so I don't.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, there's definitely the periods in my teenage years, or later on actually in my 20s, when I realized that something was up, because I noticed I was getting like attacked a lot more than other artists. So you're like, hang on, why are you just leaving this guy alone, and like you're just fucking coming after me with knives? And that's definitely a signifier. It's like, if you're on the right path, you will upset people. And you'll upset people, A, because your work is new, and B, because the competition. And then you'll find other people who just like sort of zero talent people who'll just come after you just to knock you down, you know. And that's definitely a sort of signifier. As to people going like, your work's great or whatever, I've never really listen to that because of my upbringing, like it was just so much of that kind of thing is bullshit, unfortunately, you know. And if you can find people who you trust their taste, if you know what I mean, and it's usually your parents, you know, that's who you trust, then that can be helpful. But I don't think listening to, especially on social media now, it's like, nah, it's everyone's just likes you for, you were part of a trend or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
It's very, very difficult to get any kind of gauge on what you want. So I would just say, like, it's, if what you're talking about is me being able to spot the patterns in nature.
Yeah, kind of like, because I think it's more a sense of contrast that you perhaps, because you naturally picking up on like the golden ratio, and I'm sure there's other sort of shapes and forms you're picking up on that perhaps your peers, or in contrast to people around you, kind of like weren't, or you're just doing it a lot quicker than other people were able to. Yeah,
I mean, I was fast-tracked when I did my A-levels. I didn't go beyond A-levels. I went straight into the film industry there. But I remember when I was doing art, the teacher was like, no, we're just putting you on a separate, you're way above these people. We're putting you on a separate classroom. You can just paint what you want. And they did do that. But that's just sort of annoying. If like, it's, when you're like 16 or whatever, like you don't really want to do it. You just want to hang out with your mates anyway. So being excluded from like your mates, it's not like a thing that you're particularly, you know, it's not, it's like a problem, you know. So, you know, when you're working, it's less so. What I'm trying to say is I'm really not responding to other people's praise.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really quite, and anyone who knows me knows this, and I'll pretty much reject it if you start, you know, it doesn't make me feel comfortable, and
Yeah, I get that, because I was thinking, because I've interviewed people that have, you know, like yourself, that are really wonderful. They've got amazing sort of like talent, but it's just something that's naturally sort of occurring to them. It's not something, it's just something you kind of like do. It's sort of innate.
It's a curse.
Yeah, it's a curse. And it's, you know, it's other people's reaction to that. It's what they get from that, which is very markedly different from yours, I guess. It's the same way that, with any form of art, it's like when you're creating it, that's the thing where you're living it, and the enjoyment that comes from. And then when you sort of cast it off, it goes to other people and it lives with them, and it's no longer living within you.
Yeah.
It's almost like
that's very important, you know, because the thing is, you know, that's why you should never do anything for anybody else. Do you know what I mean? It's because it's not yours. It's like it's always for everybody else. That's a given. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not doing it for, like, you do it. I mean, I do it to get the crap out of my head, and I'll get the crap out of my head, but it's always for other people. And when people go like, oh, what does this mean or whatever, and it's just like, man, it meant so many things when I was working on it. One day it meant this, and one day it meant that, and one day it meant this. If it didn't mean all those things, it wouldn't be alive as far as I'm concerned. It wouldn't be good. It would be dead, and it would be propaganda. It would be like, this means this, and it's been commissioned by this person, and you're following a message, and you're passing down the message.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it has to be for the audience. You have to be like, you know, and you hear artists say this the whole time, is that they go, what does it mean? And like, well, someone will tell them their interpretation of the work, and they go, yeah, that's exactly right. And it is.
Yeah.
It's completely right, because it shouldn't be one thing. It should always be, if it's really alive, it has to be interpreted in multiple different ways.
And I guess, like, if you're working on a piece of art like yourself, like, your emotions change from day to day, hour to hour, but then when it's out there, it seems like that emotional range is like fixed for other people, or it's their interpretation of it, which is very different from yours. And even your relationship with your work, people could say, oh, this is the most fantastic piece of artwork I've ever seen, and you're like, oh god, that was just literally the shittest piece I ever did. And it's very different.
Yeah. I mean, especially in film, you're like, you know, you have no idea, like, the crap that happens in a film set. You know, and you have all these, you know, online conspiracies about, oh my god, this means this in a film, and you're like, mate, it just means that the actor can be bothered to get out of his, you know, that day, just sort of hungover or something. You know, it's like, you know, I was
had to shoot around it.
They had to shoot around it.
So I just wanted to sort of touch upon, and I guess like this might be a bit sort of psychoanalyzing again, but I think a lot of time in our adolescence is spent trying to find our tribe. And I know you grew up under, I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong. Is it Shiri Chimney?
No, Sri Chinmoy. Sri Chinmoy.
Yeah. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that again.
That's all right.
Yeah, so it's as I Wikipedia'd it, it's described as a faith. You've mentioned in a previous interview as a cult.
Yeah.
So I just wonder, between that being a very formative experience of growing up within that, when you started to look out into the wider world to find like-minded sense of community, I guess within like the horror film community or like dark art scene, which in itself is quite a close community in itself. Yeah, what did you find and experience about entering into that particular scene, from going from one faith-based thing into into another one?
Mainly like not to ever belong to a community. I mean,
okay, yeah.
You know, like, you know, the thing about if you're in a cult is, like no one says they're in a cult. You know, you're never ever in a cult. You know, to this day, my mum is like, well, we weren't in a cult. I'm like, yeah, you were in a cult. You know, we dressed in white. I had a new name. You know, it's like I was in a cult.
It sounds like a cult. Yeah, yeah.
Cult. You know, we did sang and danced all day and night. You know what I mean? So, when you come from that sort of thing, you know, you can imagine, as I said, I had another name and I lived, we used to go to New York quite a lot in Queens. So I lived in between, we go to school in London, and then during the summer holidays, we would go to New York. And then, you know, going back to school, obviously I've got my actual name, which is Dominic. And then I had to hide that side from other people, you know, from my friends. Otherwise, I'd be mercilessly bullied. And so what that teaches you is, and then this school I went to, which is kind of hippie school anyway, they started adopting, you know, Christianity. There was a new headmistress who started bringing in the church. And so I'm like, okay, so on one side I've got this kind of Indian guy teaching me about life. On the other side, I've got the school, and then the other side, they're layering Christianity on top of it. And, you know, so by age 10, I'd wanted to leave the cult, and I did, I think, by age 13, roughly. And it kind of gave me just a sense of, like, this is all bullshit. And I mean that in just like, well, we've got two religions to compare, and then I've got the world to compare with the BBC broadcasting. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
you're like, well, what do I choose? And I realized it was all kind of, I mean, not so much consciously, because you're too young to really think about those things back then, but I was just like, I don't trust anybody. And so then you're thrown into the horror film scene, which is really niche anybody anyway. And, you know, me and my friends we sold like bootleg horror videos at the cinemas, you know, these video nasties and stuff. So we were doing illegal things. You know, our first business ventures were all illegal. in a genre that we just had the video nasties craze, and in a genre that is disreputable and no one likes anyway. So we were outcasts. Back then there was no real avenue for it. There was no internet or anything. So you'd kind of glom together in these groups, mainly around the Scala Cinema in London, which was this amazing cinema that's now a sort of nightclub, but it used to show, you know, all these different types of exploitation movies, but also films like, you know, like Fellini movies and lots of art house movies. So we'd all kind of like get together there, but there was not a group of people, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It was more like, I want to go and work in the film industry, and then I'd have to figure out a way to get into the studio. And
it is quite, I guess, like the film industry is quite nomadic as well. I guess like you come together and work very intensely on something, and then, you know, make fast friends, set friends, I think as it's called. And then you all go and disparately filter off into different things and maybe come back around.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting thing. And I guess like being in a cult, is a very sort of intense thing. I do think about in terms of people sort of, in very extreme cases when they're working on a film that's it's all consuming. You hear these sort of like stories where people, actors, directors, you know, and it's just what they live for. It's just everything you want, and their faith is in the thing that they're sort of like making. And I think they probably believe that just as much as somebody who has a very strong faith in.
Well, Hollywood is a cult. They are very, very like a bit like angled towards the industry there in a way that is, as far as I'm concerned, very sort of, it's unhealthy because they're not aware of that there are other ways of making films.
Yeah.
And it's just Hollywood I'm talking about. You'll talk to people in Hollywood and they'll go, look, well, this is the way they do things. And, you know, obviously they're very, very successful, but it's a very machine-like way of doing, and it's very regimented, and they have their ways of doing things that go back decades.
Yeah.
You know, so there's not much, that's probably why LA scares me so much. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm just not someone I'm not going to like just do what they say.
Yeah, there's a lot.
It's not creative.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, it's not a creative place.
And I think outside of just doing the work, there's sort of stuff, there's extra, there's add-ons, there's certain things you need to do, say, be engaged with outside of the work that you know to be a part of that group, that set, rather than it just being like, hey, I'm me, I do this work, and then the work is enough. I think there's a lot of pressure to get involved in a lot of other things, shall we say, that isn't necessarily like the...
Well, no, complete. And when I was growing up, it was all about, you know, the scene when I was growing up was grunge, followed by, you know, whatever Oasis is, and you know what I mean? Britpop. So it's very anarchic and very just like, we're going to do anything, and it doesn't matter. You know, the quality wasn't the thing, the energy was important, and the rebellion was important. But not the fitting in was just like, I mean, the film industry, the thing is, you have to fit in. Well, it's so difficult. The hours are so long, you have to fit in. But at the same time, you're kind of like, the films that, well, mainly, I don't know, it's just me, but the problems, the films they make in Hollywood are generally like extremely hard to make, but the quality is now, you know, superhero films are just, I'm not up for, you know.
So I did want to touch on one of your earliest special effects job, which I believe was on Interview with a Vampire, where you helped to kill Tom Cruise on screen by recycling, and I'm very excited by this, recycling Frank's skeleton from Hellraiser. Yeah. And I was struck by the fact that you made movie magic from a broken, nasty, discarded prop. So have you always been like resourceful and practical and good at problem solving?
Yes, he says, without any hint of you know what I mean? So I've always made things from, I used to make, you know, like cardboard Bruce's, you know, from Jaws, like to eat my sister when I was a kid. So anything, if you leave a bunch of cardboard and some sellotape around me, like something will get made, you know? Right. So yeah, I love problem solving. I love making things like that. And to me, that's what's actually missing from most modern films. Right. I was working on a film recently, and then they're talking about, okay, we have to build this and this and this because the director might need it or this, you know. And I'm like, look, my answer to that is you don't know. You know, you honestly don't know, because if there's a problem on one of my sets and someone goes, oh, this actor can't turn up or this thing doesn't work, I'm like, brilliant, I love it. I'm like, well, how can we then, there's a bit missing, and how can we now huddle and get this thing working again? That to me is what it's all about. I love that problem solving aspect of it, you know.
And do you, when you're thinking about problems, do you actually just do you sit there and think about problems and think about ways to solve it, or do you have an issue that you just or I don't know, something sort of practical, like you're working on an effect, or think about working an effect because you like to do something? Do you roll around the idea and try and problem solve in your mind just when you're going, doing the shopping, maybe going for a walk, that kind of thing? Yeah,
I mean, the thing about special effects makeup is it's quite different from almost, I'm just trying to think, there probably are equivalent crafts in the film industry, but traditionally what you do, you come up with the idea, you've got the screenplay, so you've got the monster, and then you come up with the idea, then you do drawings of the monster, and then you do various sculptures of the monster, and then you'd cast the actor, and then you'd get you draw sculpt with the actor, and then you mold that in plaster of Paris, and then you fill that plaster with rubber, and then you get it out, and then you get hair, and you put the hair in, and you put the paint, and you put the paint in, someone else makes the eyeballs. So what you're talking about is probably about 10-15 steps that all have to be planned out months in advance, if you know what I mean. So you have this way and a set way of doing things, and you know very well that once you start the thing, you can't stop. So so you have to put a massive amount of faith in what you're doing, and you kind of just have to do it. And so my problem solving thing would just be, it would start with, you just fail, which is something that you hear a lot, but it's totally true. You do the thing, and if it doesn't work, you just carry on doing it, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, for instance, when I did, there's a bust that I did for Tom Baker. This is going back years and years ago. So the problems, they don't even exist now, you know, but doing a bust of Tom Baker back in the day, so I was 20 odd when I did it. There was no internet and there's no research. So the first problem is I have to find pictures of Tom Baker. So that involves me going and doing the research, going down to Forbidden Planet, going down, finding the pictures of Tom Baker. And then the next problem is finding a wig, and I'm poor, so I'm like, I don't want to pay £200 for a wig. I need to find a cheap wig. And then I've got, oh my God, he's got to have a scarf. Who can knit me a scarf?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So these are very, very practical things. And then you're like, well, you know, remember the research for that took about a month of just finding the photos, and then measuring the thing, and then, and then it took a month to sculpt. And the goal is, I want to do a bust of Tom Baker that will fool people into thinking it's Tom Baker. And it did. But that's the goal. Yeah. Okay, so you don't give up until you get that goal. So you do a first one and it doesn't fool people into thinking it's Tom Baker. So you just don't give up. But you have to have a set goal, if you know what I mean. And the set goal can just be like, you know, if I'm writing, it's like, look, I've got 5 pages to do today. I don't even mean 5 good pages. I just mean 5 pages. Do you know what I mean? So the goal can be really low, you know, or it can be really high, but you have to have the goal, I think.
And it strikes me that you're a very sort of persistent and determined individual as well. Like, because there's many, you make one Tom Baker bust and it just looked crap, basically. You could be very sort of disheartened by that. But or is it a case of like, do you look at it and go like, okay, well that didn't work, but this little bit worked here, so I need to like work on like finding the stuff that did work, and you know, it's like sort of finding your way through those very steep sort of like pitfalls and stuff. And how do you sort of like manage it? Is it easy for you to brush things off that sort of like fail, or do you have to go punch your wall or something?
Sometimes. I mean, it's usually like, no, I can brush things off I don't hold grudges at all. Like, I'll get angry for like a day. Yeah. But you take that and you put it back into what you're doing, you know? You have to do that.
So firstly, I'd just like to explore the role that Tool's music played in your life and creative journey before you actually worked with the band. Do you know much about them before, like growing up?
Not really. I mean, yes, because I mean, I grew up with that type of music, sort of heavy music. So my main, my introduction to them was through MTV and the music videos, where I was like, oh wow, look at those. Because I was like that, you know, I looked like Jan Svankmajer, and I was like, oh, that looks cool. And so I liked the videos. So I remember I recorded them off telly, you know. I had a couple of them because I thought that they're kind of nice horror music videos. I never had any of their albums. And when I went to Australia when I was about in my late 20s, then Lateralis had just been released, and they're huge in Australia too. Like you just hear them blaring out of, you know, just regular music stations. So I was like, oh, who are these guys? And they were like, oh, you know, this is Adam Jones. He used to be a makeup guy. And I'm like, yeah, I know that guy. I remember his stuff on Terminator. You know what I mean? I knew vaguely who they were, but it was only in Australia when pretty much everyone listen to them, where like, you know, you'd be having a beer or whatever and you'd be listening to it, oh, this is really good. And that's when I got into them. Right. That's when I got into them.
And just to touch on the fact that obviously Adam Jones, the band's guitarist, was a special effects artist on Jurassic Park, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Terminator 2. So, and also you mentioned in a previous podcast that the special effects community, makeup community, is a very sort of close-knit bunch of people that you all kind of know each other.
Kind of, yeah.
So, did Adam's reputation precede him as a sort of I guess, like, because I watched a documentary about the band and I know a little about Adam, but in terms of and he seems a person who's been blessed twice in life to be an amazing guitarist and a wonderful visual effects guy. But I wondered, was he really within the community? Was he like a name that really sort of like stood out within that when he was doing his sort of work?
I was like, I mean, he stood out to me because, like, I'm like, oh, he's got long hair, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, if you're young and you've got long hair, you're like, oh, he's probably into, and then he's into like a metal band. He's in a metal band. Oh, he's probably cool. But those are like really superficial judgments of a teenager,
Yeah.
They're not, so, like, no, I mean, he's a bastard because he worked on Jurassic Park and Terminator 2. And, and he said, I'm not sure how long his effects career was, like 7 or 8. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. I doubt he will. But, you're like, you work on those 2 films. And I'm like, I've never worked on any films remotely reaching those quality. I mean, I worked on Harry Potter and, like, Interview the Vampire. And I'm like, are those good? I mean, look, I don't want to disparage anybody's view of like these films because like when you're working on them, you're caught up in the drama of the film.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And a lot of the time you really don't want to see the film afterwards. You're just like, I just don't care anymore. But to work on 2, like that, so he went on, and as far as I know, he just got the record label just gave him an offer, and he just said like, oh no, I'm going to try this now. Yeah.
That's the way I hear it. Yeah. So when you first met him, knowing who he was and what he did, I guess like irrespective of just like the work side of things, how was it just like sort of meeting him for like the first time? Was that an easy sort of like thing of like breaking the ice? And also, even though you're 2 extremely talented people, it's like, can you actually work together? Because that's the biggest part of the job. Can you communicate? Can you work with someone? And can you get on? Those are...
Yeah. No, I mean, that's hugely important to me. I'm more like, let's meet and see what happens. That's, and I think Adam's probably the same. It's more like, so for instance, the first time, I went over to LA to sort of meet, we just hung out for like a couple of weeks. And, they're like, well, how much work is getting done? And I'm like, well, not much, but to me, it's way more important to make sure you're on the right wavelength. And Adam, Adam and I are on the right wavelength.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the thing is, you are, because that it's quite difficult sometimes to start work with people when you're on that wavelength, because you're just talking about video games or like horror films. And Adam, unlike quite a few people in the industry, like he loves really like shitty horror films as I do.
So just following on from that question, so I've actually imagined what this phone call was like. So this is probably not what happened, but it's a few years ago. You're sitting in your local pub and you're enjoying a good whiskey. Your phone rings. It's Tool's management team and the band wants to work with you. So how did you prepare for that first meeting and follow in the footsteps of legendary artist Alex Gray?
I've met Alex and he's really nice. And there wasn't any preparation. It was, I can't remember what happened. I think it was Chet Zar went, oh, you guys should meet. Adam sent me an email and we corresponded over a few years, it took a good few years for us to meet. And he was like, oh, I'm coming to London. There was an exhibition, I think, of medical art or something.
Right.
And so we met there.
And I guess like that process of like working with someone when it's taking like a couple of years to get together, and when you did finally get together, there was sort of space for you, because obviously he's working with like Alex and they've done, obviously that's something they've done really amazing stuff together, the band, and they're kind of like won many awards, and it's very impressive what they've done. And then when it reached that particular point, for you to kind of like slot in, was there a sort of a space or an opening that were actually actively looking for somebody to come in and do, to become part of that family?
Yeah, the Opiate video happened earlier. I was just like, we're doing something, let's just do something.
Right.
Adam was like, well, we've got the Opiate, and he goes, look, just fiddle around with, you've heard that, just listen to that and see what happens. And so I came up with an idea, and I was like, oh, here's an idea, and he goes, oh yeah, okay, that's good. And then they recorded the song, and it was it's like twice as long.
Yeah.
So
it's like 10 minutes, isn't it, or more?
Yeah. So I was like, phone a record company and all the management. I go, can I have some more money? And like, no. I'm like, what am I going to do then? And so you got to find a way around that. Again, that's the problem solving part.
Yeah.
That's the fun part. But as far as the conversation goes and having to step up with Alex Gray, I mean, I literally don't think about it, because like that's Alex's thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Alex is incomparable. He's not. I can't do that.
It is, yeah.
Like, it's as much as he could
do what you do. Yeah, it's very different.
It's just different. And I know that they had a whole bunch of, after Opiate, there was a whole bunch of, back projections for their live show, that I had to do. So there was a lot of work to do there. So in that sense, they were looking for someone. But I have a feeling it's more that Adam and I, we just got on.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And just sort of touching on the Opiate² video that was celebrating the 30th anniversary of the band's EP. Could you talk me through the 3 biggest creative decisions you made?
I mean, the 3 biggest things, they're quite boring things. I mean, the first thing would be just the instigation of the idea about that. The second one was actually what I just talked about when they said, we've cut the budget in half.
Right.
So then I'm like, wow, I've got 5 minutes to fill. That's pretty big. Because you've got to come up with 5 minutes of stuff for no money.
Yeah.
And the last one would be just finishing it.
Yeah, I heard the story about the computers blowing up.
Yeah, exactly. That's a creative decision. I mean, it's like, am I going to go and work on Ailen, or am I going to stay here and finish that? Going back to the initial, how do you come up with the idea?
Yeah.
I remember, Opiate's got some pretty cool lyrics, and I was like, well, this seemed to be, I'm like, it seems to be, you can interpret this song as being about religion, opiate for the masses, and you know what I mean? That's the obvious interpretation of it. So I'm like, okay, we had like, it started off with like a cross, and so I was like, okay, I'll put a cross up there. And then I was like, that's too obvious. So I chopped the top of the cross off.
Right.
And then I was like, it's still too obvious. So I was like, I just have the light. I'm just going to have a light instead of a cross. That's just where the head was. You know what I mean? So I'm like literally starting off with a really obvious thing and then just deconstructing it. So there's nothing there. And then I was looking around for online, and on the Isle of Grain, which is in the mouth of the Thames estuary, there's these anti-tank bollards that they placed along the beach to stop the tanks rolling up during the Second World War, or maybe in the First World War, I'm not sure. And I was like, those look amazing. So we went down there and we filmed that one side of the beach, and you'll see that there's one shot in it where you'll see that in the video. And I was like, oh, I like one side of it, so let's just flip it. Now there's no sea there. It just looks like there's a sort of graveyard. However, I love the fact that these bollards were specifically designed shapes. Do you know what I mean? They're not just me coming up with a shape. They're like, no, these are designed to stop things. So they have a practical use. So that triggers your subconscious, hopefully. And, they look like graves and things like that. So I'm like, okay, that's vague enough. There's a light and there's some graves, and, and then you start thinking about it, and you're like, okay, that's death and life. And this is what I mean about the themes that, like, organically they're evolving, And then initially I was like, okay, there's going to be an insect, and there's a cocoon, and this thing's going to hatch out of the cocoon. And then it's going to turn into sort of butterfly and eventually turn to something else. So it's going to be an evolution of this thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, but it's a moth, isn't it? So it's going to go towards the light and probably be burnt by the light. That's what moths do, isn't it? And then you start building it and design the cocoon. And then you're like, well, fuck, this cocoon is a bit boring. Where does it come from? Does it come from the ground? And it's got to come out of the ground, and then it's going to come out of the ground, and then I'm like, shit, they want 5 more minutes. I've got to cut something. So I cut the cocoon, about 2 or 3 more of the creatures, you know what I mean? And then it slowly it starts forming a shape where you're like, okay, I can afford 3 puppets. Maybe in the beginning I can afford 3 puppets. Those need to get sent off to Australia to get made. And then those need to get sent early because I know their schedule and my schedule. So they need to get sent off like 6 months. And then I'll carry on building the rest of the thing, and then we'll film it in 6 months. And so you're then locked in to those 3 puppets. You cannot change the beginning of the thing, of the video. But the end is like, I don't know You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the creative process. It's more like, okay, I've locked something down. I'm not changing this part. I love this part, but now I'm fucked. I'm like, because I have to do it.
Yeah.
And the last bit, I don't know what I'm doing at all. And that goes right to the end of the video where I'm editing, and I'm like, there's still always 30% that I leave deliberately to motivate me, but also to fail, like a real chance of failure, because that's really exciting. Do you know what I mean? It's like you have to be able to, you have to look the sort of death. Not death, but
I know you mean. Yeah.
You know.
So with that ending, did you try? And also, when you were starting this process, do you more of like a sort of sketching this stuff out, or writing it, or are you doing like a mood board?
Yeah. So I storyboarded the first. What I tend to do is I storyboard things very tightly, but again, it's only 70%. So the stuff where I'm like, look, I know this isn't going to be. It's just a bunch of explosions and stuff, you know. Or like at the end of the Opiate video, there's a machine that you can't really see because it's kind of covered up, but there's this machine that this friend of mine made, and he built this sort of mechanical device that spins around that was kind of really hypnotic and mesmerizing. This guy, Josh Head, who built it. And, you know, it was incredible. We'd sit on set and everyone just watched this thing because it was like a spinner, you know, those little toys.
Yeah.
You just sit there watching this thing this guy had built, and you're like, God, I can't stop watching. It would literally hypnotize you. So the whole crew would sit around watching this thing. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be the end of the video. But then you put it and you watch it, and it's not quite as hypnotizing as it was on set.
Yeah.
So then you have to add other things, you know.
Because I guess it's a sort of, it has to be this sort of fear, necessity, sort of like deadline. It's definitely like a couple of elements that come together to force you to button or come up with a satisfying ending, or the most satisfying ending that you can kind of come up with. In
my head, it's always like, I did the best bits in 2 minutes in. You know, I'm like, you know, for me, it's like sort of how do you keep it up for 10 minutes? Right. So I'm like, okay, I've got these kind of cool creatures at the beginning, but then you have to shift pace and tone, and you have to bring, you know, for instance, you bring in sort of some weird psychedelic sequences, a black and white sequence, you know, long takes versus short takes. Like, what are you delivering to the audience? How long before they turn off? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's, to me, it's just like, well, what's interesting? How do I keep it interesting for the 10 minutes? And that's the only real question you need to ask. Okay. It's not, you know, things like theme or what it's about. Those are just not interesting to me. Yeah. You know what I mean, because like, I mean, you find this with a lot of film companies. Like, oh, what's your theme or this or that? And you're like, you can't criticize a theme. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they're asking you to come up and have a conversation about something where they're like safe, because they're talking about themes, and you're talking about, like, you know, actual objects, and I don't like red, you know, it's, you know what I mean? So it's the same like conceptual art. It's hard to criticize conceptual art when you read the little piece of writing next to it explains the you know, and you'd be like, but you just if you remove the writing away from it, you just experience it on a, I guess, like on a visceral, or like on like a sort of practical level, because what you're describing, I guess, to me is just very sort of practical sort of like steps. And I mean, I've got a theory that the reason rich people like Rothkos is because they can't be criticized. You know, it's like, it's not like you can't look at one and go, oh wow, that's sort of moving, the colors moving. You can definitely feel it, but you can't go, why do you like it, if you know what I mean? You can't go, oh, could you I don't like that expression, I don't like the way that character's looking, could you erase that? All the problems that rich people had to contend with when they did commission art in the past, of like, oh, get rid of that person, they're fallen out of favour. You know what I mean? Like you've got this art that it literally can't be criticised. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And I think that's a bit of a shame, really. Because otherwise you're just going to be like, oh, that's just shit. You know, just the hatred that people have for modern art. You know what I mean? Where it shouldn't be about that. It should be about something, you know, it's the difference between, you know, giving someone like practical advice, like if they were in a film with lots of talking, you could get genuine practical advice from like a Mike Leigh movie, or you could watch like a sort of, you know, like, I'm not sure, some abstract filmmaker like, is it Bellatar or something, and you'd be like, you don't get any advice.
Yeah.
You get nothing that helps
nothing.
you.
Yeah, nothing practical. Yeah.
But you might get a sense of comfort. Yeah.
So just touching on the live music aspect of Tool. So live music, especially stadium shows, has become an arms race of who can have the most complex and stunning visuals behind a band, artist, or DJ when they perform. Tool is known for having very high standards when it comes to the presentation of the band. So how do you start the process of creating and producing the live visuals for them?
I think the main challenge was like the complete is just ignoring reality, if you know what I mean. Because when they asked me to do that, they said, okay, you've got a month, and you have to come up with at least, they had 50 minutes to fill. So I had to come up with at least an hour and a half's worth of footage in a month, because I knew that, because they had about 50 minutes to fill, I knew that I have to produce, like not double that, but significantly over the 50 minutes. Otherwise, just because a lot of it would fail, So with that, it was learning. I literally learned I tested about in a week. I tested about 5 new computer programs, and I was like, okay, if I can do something decent with any of these in a day, I'm going to use them. So there were 3 computer programs that I used. It's like fractal programs and all these sorts of things. And then I would just divide my day up into, and this is what I mean about setting goals. I would say, okay, I've got an hour to sort of muck around on the controls for this thing. And then I've got an hour to or 3 hours to render it or whatever. And then I have to grade it. And it was all absolutely planned out. Okay, literally stopwatch now, you move on to the next one. And then after a month's work, I had about an hour and a half's worth of stuff.
Yeah.
And then that gets delivered to Breck, who's the VJ, and we project it up on a screen. And then I would go around, go on tour with them, and I'd sort of have a look at it, or go to a rehearsal site and sort of have a look at it. And then at that point, you're like, the thing that you thought would be amazing at like 7 stories tall, you're suddenly like, there's one eyeball, I did this eyeball, and you're suddenly like, oh fuck, that's just way too intense.
Yeah.
And it's too much. And then you have these, a whole new set of problems where you're like, okay, you've got to balance your visuals for the lighting guys, because you're like, there's too much white in the visual, so it overpowers the lighting. And, right now I'm like, we're going to be doing some new stuff for whenever they play in the future. And, for me, it's more about finding the right balance between the rest of the Tool crew and my work. Whereas initially it was just this blind panic of, fuck, I've just got to make this stuff and like literally just see what hits the wall and sticks, and sometimes you just watch and go, oh God, that's terrible. And then sometimes the simplest things would work.
Right.
And so for me, it's just a learning curve of like, I want to maximize whatever Tool's live experience is, so it's unique and different to everybody else's live Tool,
And I guess like the thing is that in terms of scale and like proportion, because these things are huge, they're massively sort of like blown up. And was there a different appreciation in terms of like perspective and constructing something, as you say, like a big eyeball, or having too much white? Was there certain things, like methods or tips and tricks you sort of picked up through that sort of like process?
I noticed like before, I'd look at their old visuals and I'd be like, they're all, they were done by Chet or whoever. And, they're like these animations and they sort of sit there. And I remember the first thing that when I listened to the new album, I was like, it's got to have more color. I want like sort of slabs of color, which I think sort of piss the lighting guys off because they don't really like that thing. But, I was like, I said, this is red and then this is blue and I want to feel blue and this one to feel red and this one feels green and da-da. So I'd map it out in really basic blocks like that. And then, when you see it live, you're like, you feel the audience react to a red or not, and you're like, oh fuck, I know that needs to be different.
Yeah.
Because when it works, you can really feel the audience you'll get a visceral reaction from the audience, possibly even applause.
Yeah.
You get the visual correct with the music.
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? And you'll see that on one night something worked, and then, you know, so it's really organic, and you're really playing off what you're seeing. And I'm also going around, so I'm watching it from the booth, and then I'm watching it right from the gods.
So when you were going around looking at that sort of stuff, were you inspired for like the next go around to like, right, I'm going to attempt to do X, Y, or Z, because I know that this has worked, that's kind of like worked, and now I want to, you know, maybe be more ambitious or focus on something else?
There's nothing that I've thought of that that's not how I work. I would just start work and we'd see what happened.
Right.
No, the colours thing is that to me is very much laying down the first coat of paint.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. So I'm like, right now the tour is in, I think, a really good shape, at least in my eyes, as to how it feels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's always changed. I mean, whenever I've been with them, they're always like, oh, we've changed that for this song, and they're always switching it around.
Right. Oh, okay.
But the more elaborate stuff, there's definitely stuff I would want to do to kind of consolidate the experience. You know, like, I mean, the stuff that we're talking about now, you know, we're coming up with, we just want to push the technology to give you a live show that's sort of beyond what.
And how is that working with that kind of like technology? Because I know that's very at the forefront, and I know like live music definitely has become a lot bigger than it was perhaps in terms of the sort of scale of concerts. When you look at, say, like Beyonce's huge show, Tool show, like lots of people put on massive shows, like Kanye West with this floating stage. What is it like working with that technology, I guess, like from a day-to-day sort of
I mean,
thing?
I don't use it. So like, I mean, you know, like, I mean, they're completely intimidating because, you know, you know, I do the visual stuff, and I've got a handle on, you know, I've got an ultra widescreen monitor, which is the exact size of the show at its fullest.
Right. Yeah.
At its fullest. Cause it's like a 3840 wide monitor by 108. So it's a very extreme widescreen rectangle, and when the show's operating fully, it's that shape. A lot of the time they have to cut it down, you know, depending on the venue, but it's still really tall and really impressive, and we've got these curtains that sort of come around. But like, I didn't come up with the curtains, and I operate the curtains, and you know, when I was talking to them the other day, like Adam was talking about this guy, and I was like, who's that? And he was like, you know, it's part of the crew, you know. Then I should know, you know. But the fact is that they're on tour. You know, when they're on tour the whole time. So it's a 24-hour cycle, and I can dip in and get on the tour bus for that, but then I hop out. But they're still doing it.
You're living the dream, I think, in that regard. You can hop off.
Have you ever been on tour?
Well, I think in a sense of like being able to dip in and out, because if I understand, actually tours are brutal and very hard for the actual horrible band. But you can go on, you know, do your thing, and then I guess you're not committed to the 1.5 or 2 years it is that they have to do.
Well, my experience is just, I mean, it's just horrible. I mean, I kind of grew up like this as well, because the Cult did a lot of that stuff. So that, I think it annoys me in a way that's like, it triggers me. But the part that triggers me is that everywhere you go to a stadium or whatever, and they all look exactly the same, but slightly different. So you're always going to get lost, but in a building that looks exactly the same. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So like, that's the nightmare of being on tour, as far as I can see, is you're constantly walking around a stadium that's slightly different. Yeah. You know, so you're always going to where you're always lost, and it's always sort of boring, and it's always busy, and you're always, especially in my case, I'm always in everyone else's way, you know. So I don't want to be annoying, but I know that I am, because they're all a big crew of people, you know. But I'm not, having said that, I'm not talking about Tool specifically here. I'm talking about that's the nature of being,
that's the nature of the beast.
Big organisation. It's the same in a film set. You're constantly walking around in the dark with cables tripping around.
So I watched your short film Lair, which you released in 2004 while I was researching for this interview. Why do you think people have had such a strong reaction and connection to that piece of work?
I don't know. I mean, I had a strong reaction to the music when I heard it. I mean, at the time, I sent that off to every single film festival that was going, probably about 100, slightly less than 100 film festivals. I can tell you, nobody was interested then until 1.0 picked it up. It was a girl called Claire Cook, a friend of mine who's lovely, and I will forever be grateful, because as soon as 1.0 picked it up, everybody else, all the other festivals suddenly started to be interested in it. And is unfortunately the reality of it.
It's a very impressive piece of work that you made. You literally did everything. To have the forethought to put something together, which literally, I mean, I don't know that much about filmmaking, but that seems like a job of like 30 people or more to sort of put that together kind of thing. And to achieve that.
Yeah, but that's on my goal. My goal was like, okay, I've got 300 quid.
You made them £300?
Yeah. So what can I do? I mean, I took 6 months out of my life to do it.
Yeah.
So if you take my fee out of it. I'm not doing that. But, but my goal was, okay, I want to make this bit, a music video for this bit of music for under £300, and I just want to start and see where it goes. And a friend of mine lent me the fish tank. I knew I wanted to have an eel in it, so I sculpted an eel, and I just sort of started and saw what happened. And I would go into my garden, I'd dig up snails and some snails in there and worms and all that sort of thing. But it was all stuff that I had lying around. That was the rule. I was like, the only thing I'm building is the eel, but the rest of it is just crap I've got lying around. So it's all like sticks and rubber johnnies and, sellotape and things like that. So, that's basically the goal of it. And then the result is, I don't know. I don't know why people respond to it, but I think it's the combination of the music and the sound.
Yeah, I do too. And the attention to detail as well. I was really struck by that. And also, there's something I wanted to sort of talk about as well about your particular work, is that maybe it's sort of often missed. There is definitely a sort of sense of like humour there, which I saw underneath. And then again, this is my interpretation of what I kind of like saw, so it may be very different to yours. But I thought there was a sense of like humour, like underneath it, of a sort of absurdism, and it being, the idea of this sort of phallic thing, sort of like growing out of the sort of like creature and that sort of stuff. As you say, you're a provocateur, and that's what I got from it. So I know there's under the surface is a very, very visceral reaction, but I could see a sense of humour and a sense of sort of play there that I don't think gets talked about enough, perhaps, or I haven't heard people talk about that as much.
In my work. Yeah. I mean, hopefully, because I would say that is the creativity that's probably the point of that exercise. It's just like, how far can I push myself creatively with nothing? And hopefully, I'm glad you saw that. That's all I can say. Because, it does annoy me that people, annoy is probably too strong a word, but people come up, I thought you'd be darker. And I'm like, what do you mean? And you're like, to me, it's really, I'm like, you wanted me to? Do you know what I mean? I'm like, why would you want? Yeah. Who wants to be around a sort of vampire?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I don't know.
And I guess like and it also, I think to say now is that you're doing is it a 4K restoration, or is restoration the right word?
Oh God, if I can be bothered, yeah.
Because I saw a clip on your on your Instagram. So you're in the process of getting the negative and then just 4King it, or are you doing more? Is it more of a?
It's both. It's like there's no negative. So it was shot on a Sony, like a one-chip Sony mini DV camera. It's a very, very basic camera. However, I do still have all the After Effects, like the project file. So all the stuff that's layered on top of each other I can restore it at a level that isn't just a 4K up-res of the thing. I've run it through a 4K up-res thing, and there's a lot of particles in the water in the tank and it has a very hard time. So every shot needs its own attention.
Okay,
Whether I can give that attention, it's like, I'm not sure if I can be bothered, but I do. It does look quite good in 4K.
So I just want to ask a real fanboy question here. So you worked on Alien Covenant. As I think in my notes I put a visual effects artist, but I think you're a concept artist on that one. I'm not sure if I got your credit right.
I think I've got a couple of credits.
Yeah. So we'll go for concept artist, visual effects artist. And was that via Odd Studio as well? Did you work through them or with them on that particular show?
Well, so the effects company were Odd Studio and Creatures Inc.
Right.
I was actually interviewed by Ridley on that.
Okay, yeah.
So I was hired by, but it was kind of like, it was weird because a friend of mine, Charlie Henley and Ravi Bansal, they were like, oh, let's get Dom on this. And I remember going into RSA, Ridley Scott Associates, and I was like, I honestly didn't know I was there, but I remember as I came in, Ridley was getting into the lift. Yeah. And so I was like, right, I'm not going to get into the lift with him to go up to an interview with. I clocked immediately. I was
Right.
like, okay, so anyway, but then that got handed over to Conor O'Sullivan, who was doing Creatures Inc. And I'd worked with Odd Studio before because I lived in Australia doing Farscape. So I know both Damien and Adam Johansson. So then, yeah, just flew out to Australia and started working with them.
So what was it like to create and play in the world of H.R. Giger and also work with visionary filmmaker Ridley Scott?
I mean, it's a weird one because the Giger one was like, they've got some, like they can't use some of his stuff.
Okay.
I think.
Interesting, yeah.
But there were definitely people on copyright like coming around going like, oh, you can't do this or you can't do that.
Oh,
but it was
right.
all a bit vague. And,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, those films are often quite vague. As far as working on an Alien movie, I mean, I was pinching myself every day.
I can imagine, yeah.
You know, and I was pinching myself. I didn't work with Ridley.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I talked to him probably about 3 or 4 times.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, I like Ridley a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he's funny and he's brutal. Like, he's such a hard worker. It's ridiculous. It's sort of like, it's just one of those things. Like, oh, I want to be a director. I'm like, well, I've got to do that. No, I don't.
Yeah.
It's amazing. He's incredible. It's like you when you meet people like that, you suddenly realise like, oh yeah,
Well, that's a director. Yeah.
It's just on another level. I was just blessed to be working with, you know, just on an Alien. It's just a dream. I don't, you know, the film is like, I don't hate it. You know, that film to me is like an above average movie. It just, you know, it's just got to live up to Alien, which is unfortunately impossible.
So when you got the gig, were they giving you sort of like assets and stuff like the Alien to kind of like work with or play around with? What was that kind of like brief that you kind of had, or can you kind of do or not do?
So like they would like that, oh, there's this sequence. They never give you the script anymore.
Right.
Or like it's kind of rare that you do get given it, and it's not really necessary that you do. You know, a lot of these films, they're art led, you know. So
Yeah.
if someone draws something, they're much more likely to put it in the film than if it's written.
Oh, okay, right.
Do you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
you can literally draw something and they'll be like, oh, we like that. Okay, they'll write a scene around it, which is amazing. But, you know, but everyone's kind of guarding their own little pots, you know?
Yeah.
So my experience is like, okay, we've got a whole bunch of things to do. I can't remember what the first thing was. So, I mean, this is a silly story. So like, you know, they'd be like, okay, just do an egg. You know, I'm like, okay, I'll draw an egg. And just for warm up, you know, so half a day later I deliver an egg, you know. And then, you know, I get to Australia and that egg's been printed out, you know, and I'm like, well, you didn't say design an egg.
Right.
You know, and then before I know it, that egg's in the movie. It's on the poster, and I've now got a toy of it, and it's been printed out. But I'm not. I didn't. Like, that wasn't a brief. You know what I mean? It wasn't like we need the egg for this sequence and this sequence. It was more like, oh, just here's a warm up exercise, do an egg. But then I'm like panicking because it's now being used to advertise the film, and it's like people are going, what, the egg design's so weird, and you know, and that's what I mean about movies, is you don't know what how they. So people debating why the egg design is now changed and why it does this, and they're reading all this stuff into it, and you're like, well, that's not the reason.
Yeah, because you were just sort of sat there like, I'm going to dash out an egg real quick, and this is my idea, this is my version of what I think an egg is. I guess
I was just warming up.
Yeah, had you know, like I was saying, had you known that was going to happen? You know, because I think a lot of times these movies, in terms of the design, they're sort of like classic, but it evolves slowly through these movies, and they try different things. Like in Alien 3, they had that dog alien and that sort of stuff. So, in terms of you as an artist and being a fan of the Alien franchise, was there anything that you particularly wanted to push it in a direction to your sort of like taste you thought they hadn't sort of quite explored?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was things that I pushed that. I mean, weirdly, like they were already, because I said I never read the script, but I know like Carlos Huante did similar things, but in America. He's a production designer. I wanted David to have, because I love The Island of Dr. Moreau, like the book. So when I heard the script or the concept of the script, I was like, oh, that's Dr. Moreau. Do you know what I mean? I was like, brilliant. This is going to be great. So I was like, he's got a whole bunch of like these chickens. So they were like benign alien chickens around. They're like proto-aliens. So you'd just be like, you'd see the alien and it'd be disgusting and weird, but it's not aggressive. I just wanted it to be like, well, which one of these is going to be, you're surrounded by fucking aliens, but they're not aggressive.
Yeah.
So when is it going to become aggressive? Which one? And you'd be slowly like, you know, you'd have one of them like playing with the cat, you know, the little chicken one. And you're like, is it going to attack? You know?
Right.
And no, they didn't want any of that. But I'm saying it like I'm pitching it to Ridley Scott here. I'm not, you know, I'm just going, here's a chicken. Look. But the thing is, these things kind of were in the script. I found out afterwards that it was more like that. David was more benign.
Right.
There's more of a mystery there and these things. But they change. Like the you know, the initial opening for that film was, as far as I'm concerned, brilliant. It was, I'm not sure if you know it. It started with Shaw, Naomi Rapaz's character in the spaceship, and like David's head, the severed head of David, is orbiting around the spaceship.
Right. Yeah.
And begging her to be let back in again because it's tried to kill her like one too many times.
Yeah,
like, I'm not going to try and kill you again. And she's like, no, I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? And it's a classic horror movie. Oh, let me in.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a classic horror movie thing. And I was, there's lots of imaginative things like that I wish were in the.
Yeah, I think it was a shame that they got rid of Naomi Rapace and David's relationship, because I think that was one of the most interesting parts of like Prometheus, even though it had its faults, that they had really good chemistry together. And that would have been exciting to see them actually go off to that planet and find it as a island of Dr. Monroe, as you sort of like say. That would have been cool. Oh, well.
I just wanted the adventure of the space girl in the head.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, me too.
That's what I wanted.
That's what I wanted, because I think that would have been a really interesting.
Exactly. It's this weird, dumb idea, you know, it's sort of.
But it was, so I just want to sort of jump ahead and just ask a really hard question today, which is, what was the best practical digital effects film sequence you've worked on which hit the cutting room floor?
I mean, it's a tough one because it all gets cut. I mean, I would say like, you know, it's more like, the problem is more like the one I described earlier, where you would do something that would end up in the film.
Right. Oh, so the reverse. Yeah.
Because usually what happens is like, usually what would happen would, they'd be like, oh, it's too gross or it's too extreme, and the director would bottle it and then come back and apologize afterwards going, my film didn't work, and I should have put the stuff that was interesting in the film. You know what I mean? And it's a real problem, and you see it in lots of films, is that they pull back from, you know what I mean? It's like if someone, you know, you can imagine John Carpenter like bottling The Thing, you know? Yeah. Going like, wait, man, I haven't seen anything like this. This is I think we've just got to scrap all of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. That kind of thing happens quite a lot. You don't have anyone who's got your back. If you know what I mean. Yeah,
exactly. To say like, no, go ahead, push further.
Yeah. And that's, you know, that's the thing I realised is without John Carpenter and if you look into the making of Alien, like Ridley Scott defended Giger. No one wanted Giger. And he was the man who defended him. So if you don't have, you need a creative with a guard dog or a protector, someone who's going to push that to someone who's more powerful. Otherwise, you're kind of dead in the water. Yeah. The stuff gets cut the whole time. So I don't think I can really say like, oh, there's one particular thing. I mean, there's definitely there is one particular thing. There's a film that I made when I was a teenager with Barney Clay, who's a friend of mine. And we made a gelatin head. Which is an old effects. They used to make heads out of gelatin, which is kind of translucent material. And we stabbed it, and the knife, when the gag was, it had to go through the guy's cheek and come out of his mouth. Right. You know? And we did it, and in one hit, you know, the knife went in and the blood came out, and we were like, oh, it's amazing. We were so excited, and then we realised we hadn't turned the camera on. And we were literally there going, but you know, you want to just rewind time. Yeah, you know, and you're just like, I'd worked for like 2 months building this thing. Oh gosh, and we tried it again, it just didn't look right. I'll always remember that. Wow. Well, a good lesson then, I guess. But I think you have to make the mistake. Yeah. If you hand the effect off and it's like a filmmaker making a mistake, you're just like, it's there. You made it for them, you know what I mean? It's like, effects is like basically being in catering, you know, you bake the best cakes you can, but it could just sit there at the end of the wedding and just rot, you know. But you have to do it. Yeah. Build the cake. You've done your bit. You've made the most amazing cake. Yeah. And just following on from that, I think the most recent film project you've worked on, which is about to be released, is Evil Dead
Evil Dead Rise movie, and I know you're a massive Evil Dead fan like me. So did you get goosebumps when you worked on the Deadite special effects?
Yes. Is the polite answer. I mean, not goosebumps, but the sense of, I mean, Adam Johansson again or Johansson, I should say, from Odd Studio called me up and he goes, look, mate, I've got a job for you and you're not going to be able to say no. And I couldn't say no. We can't do it because we don't have enough time. And I know you can't do it, but you're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
I said, well, what is he? He goes, Evil Dead. I was like, yeah, okay, we're doing it. Yeah, all right, come on. You know, it's just like, yeah, it's a dream. You know, I've got pictures of me 8 years old wearing an Evil Dead t-shirt.
Right.
Yeah. It's a film I've seen over 100 times. I mean, literally. So, and Jaws is the only other film I've seen over 100 times. So it's in my blood to an extent where, like, just fucking love those films. The first two, anyway, you know.
But again, like, it's another thing where you get there, you're a massive fan of Evil Dead, and you're like, right, I might want to push it in this direction a little bit or that direction a little bit. Was there any sort of, you know, because I guess you get to add to the mythology a little bit.
Yeah, no, there was one page, so I got one page of a script, and then they were like, no, we need this. And it was kind of like, without spoiling the film, but there's a bit in the film where the lead character, you'll just see it. It's a sort of big showpiece thing. So, and, you know, so they're like, okay, we need this particular problem being solved. And there were only I'd say about 3 or 4 ways of solving it.
Okay.
Like, and I was like, the first thing I did was like ridiculously over the top and just gory. And they sort of toned that down. Like, you bastards, it should have been more gory.
Yeah.
But, and then it was about a week's work on it.
Okay.
So it was just design work of
right.
It's figuring out this problem and how it should look. And then that design goes to Odd, and then Odd will build it. And they'll come up against their own set of problems.
I see. So there's times where you just brought in as like a creative, like artistic problem solver.
Yeah. It's usually you get a brief. I mean, often now they'll send you a whole bunch of pictures, which I hate, you know. And usually what I do is I'll send them back and say, no, give me a script or give me a paragraph. Just write a paragraph of what you want. Don't send me inspiration, because like that's not my problem. The problem is what does the thing do and how does it do it? Like, does it need to sort of crawl across the ceiling or fit into a, you know what I mean? Like with Possum, initially it had to fold up into a bag and then be hung on the wall as well. So I had to make something that folded up into a bag, and then very, very quickly it could turn into a spider once you unfolded it, and then also hung on a wall. So it can't be bigger than the door, if you know. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Very, very simple, practical things. Those are the things that, because ultimately you're shooting on a set, and those are the things that, you know, if you cost of production like 50 grand because your dumb design didn't fit in the door, like, you're going to be in trouble.
Right. Yeah.
You know, those are the problems.
Yeah, exactly.
The other stuff they'll forget about, like how scary it was, or as I said, the theme or whatever. Yeah. They'll forget about all of that, you know.
And also, just quickly following on from that question, what do you think is sort of like missing from modern filmmaking at the moment?
I mean, it's a very interesting question. I see, the biggest thing that I see missing from films today is a lack of interpersonal relationships. And by that, I mean films where characters just kind of hang out. You know what I mean? Like they did in The Thing, they did in Fog, and they did in Evil Dead. You know, scenes where we're told by film writing gurus who are all wrong that you need to have conflict, and people misinterpret that as like, so everything is kind of snappy and conflict driven and like, oh my God, there's a problem, everyone's running around. It's just like, man, just give me a time to chill with these people. Give me like 20 minutes to chill with these people, see if I like them or not. And so we got these films where, like, it used to be the case, be like, you have to get to like the characters, you have to get to, that's what you'd have to get, hire these actors because they're bankable and whereas now that's been replaced by distract the audience, if you know what I mean. And they don't settle into the things that personally I respond to in a feature film, which is just like, you know, I like MacReady in The Thing. And why do I like him? Because he's like hates everybody that he works with. Is that good? Do you know what I mean? He's clearly unhappy, sort of pouring his Jack and Coke into the computer, who's his only friend. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you're like, is that, and you're like, well, can I hang out with these characters? And they're all miserable, but they are real.
Yeah.
They feel real. And so when they die, you're sort of like, oh.
Yeah, and they have chemistry, I guess. They have personality.
Chemistry.
Yeah, they feel like real people.
Whereas now it's very sort of tricksy and very by the numbers, like conflict resolution, you know.
And just briefly, just going all the way back to sort of Hellraiser. When I watched the original Hellraiser to like the Hellraiser remake that they made.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, like, so it's not bad. It's not atrocious, but the thing about the original Hellraiser is that it's basically about an extramarital affair that goes like hideously sort of like wrong. Like that's the thing, and it's really done in a really weird sort of like grimy, low budget way. Whereas like, and then the sort of the Cenobites and that sort of stuff just filter into that, but it's not necessarily it's not the meat of the emotional meat of the movie. Whereas now the reverse of that is like the meat of the movie is the Cenobites versus the periphery interpersonal relationships with the teenagers, and it's just not that interesting.
Well, I think there's a big problem with. I mean, it goes to this because it's sort of like they're not showing it might be because of the rise of, you know, psychiatry or something. They're not showing like the characters solving their own problems, but they're really interested in the themes and like the backstory and why everything is the reason it is, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And, so, you know, you've got these films now where they think they've got the semblance of being deep, but as I was saying earlier, they don't solve any practical problems.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like apart from like don't go into the cellar that we all know. But they're kind of like the characters are like they feel like they're always trapped by their past, and you know, it's all very weighty stuff. Whereas I think when you know, you're watching The Thing or American Werewolf in London, especially American Werewolf in London, they're just dismissive of it. Yeah. Which is what's so brilliant about it. Or even Return of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, they're just like, nah, shut up. American Werewolf in London, he's like, am I mad? Am I? You know, like, doesn't know. And it doesn't matter. No. It doesn't matter that he was in love either. Do you know what I mean? The story isn't this big, weighty thing.
Oh, so I just wanted to just finally ask you, what's your dream project if money and time wasn't an issue for you?
My dream project is a film I've been working on for about 30 years. But that's not going to get made because it's just there's too much money.
How much, what, I guess in today's money, because everything's been hyperinflated.
Probably 40 grand. I mean, the thing is, I haven't made a film since last film I made was 8 years ago, 10 years ago. So the price of wood now alone.
It's like,
Yeah, it's substantially more expensive to make things. So I'm not the person to budget my film right now. But no, probably about 40 grand, something like that. It's not 40 grand, 40 million. I mean, right now I'm working on an adaptation of Lair of the White Worm, which is a Bram Stoker novel, and that's my dream to get done pretty soon.
And what's that about? I've not, I haven't heard that. Like,
it's basically Bram Stoker's failed attempt to like redo Dracula with a woman. You know, so he's kind of gone, vampires, and the thing is, I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but I don't think Dracula is a very good novel. Okay, it's a very good character and very resonant, but it's not a particularly good read. There's lots of. Have you ever read it?
No, I've not. I mean, I've seen Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. I've seen Christopher Lee's Dracula. I mean, I'm aware of Dracula, but I've not.
It's not really. It's mostly like letters. Lair of the White Worm isn't, but it's kind of going. Okay, there's a castle, there's a woman, and instead of bats, it's snakes.
Okay.
Or worms, as they call it. But more importantly, it's. I think it's the first instance of like the monster in the basement story, and I think it was a huge influence on H.P. Lovecraft.
Okay, yeah.
Because there are lots of things about it that H.P. Lovecraft appears to have lifted it for his stories. The main one is that there's a sense of madness to it, that Bram Stoker was, I think he had syphilis when he wrote it, so he was dying and mad. And he was and you read the novel and it doesn't really make sense. It's not very good and it doesn't make sense. However, there's some things in it that are kind of cool. And I think if you're going to adapt something, you should probably adapt something that doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? Because it's supposedly a classic, inverted commas. It's just not. But I don't think Dracula is either. I think Dracula is one of those things that is a classic because you can adapt it so many ways. It's got such strong characters that you can adapt it in all these different ways. So that's what I'd like to do with Lair of the White Worm.
Well, that's all my questions I've got for you this afternoon. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you, Dominic. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you. That's been great.